December 2024. China sent its Coast Guard ships into Philippine waters. Again. But this time, something different happened. Something that caught Beijing completely off guard. The Philippines didn't back down. They didn't apologize. They didn't negotiate. And within 48 hours, China's ships quietly retreated. Now, if you're thinking this is just another territorial dispute, another standoff in the South China Sea, you're missing the bigger picture. Because what just happened isn't just about islands or fishing rights. It's about the moment a giant realized it's not invincible, and a small nation realized it doesn't have to be. I'm going to show you exactly what changed, why China's strategy is collapsing, and what this means for every Filipino watching. But first, if you're worried about regional instability affecting your economic future, I created something for you. The Cruise Freedom Blueprint shows how to build income that works anywhere, regardless of what happens in these waters. Link below. Now let's get into what China doesn't want you to know. Let me break down what the media isn't telling you. For years, China's playbook in the South China Sea has been simple. Send ships, assert control, wait for the Philippines to back down, rinse and repeat. It worked under previous administrations. The pattern was predictable. China pushes, Philippines protests, international community issues statements, nothing changes, China stays, Philippines leaves, but December 2024 shattered that pattern. When Chinese Coast Guard vessels entered the exclusive economic zone near Ayungin Shoal, the Philippine Coast Guard didn't just file a diplomatic protest. They held their position, called in reinforcements, and made it clear they weren't moving. The Philippine Navy deployed additional vessels. The Air Force conducted patrols, and President Marcos went public immediately, not with carefully worded diplomatic language, with a direct message: "This is our territory, leave." Within 2 days, Chinese ships withdrew, not because of force, not because of threats, because for the first time in years, China blinked first, and that changes everything. But here's the part that has Beijing terrified, and it's not what you think. China's entire South China Sea strategy relies on one thing: isolation. If they can make the Philippines stand alone, they win. If they can exhaust Filipino resolve through endless pressure, they win. If they can make the costs of resistance higher than the costs of surrender, they win. But that strategy is collapsing. Here's why. First, the United States made its position crystal clear. In 2023, President Biden explicitly stated that the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty covers attacks on Philippine vessels in the South China Sea. That's not diplomatic theater, that's a red line. China knows that pushing too hard doesn't just risk confrontation with the Philippines, it risks confrontation with the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Second, Japan entered the equation. January 2024, Japan and the Philippines signed a reciprocal access agreement. Japanese self-defense forces can now operate from Philippine bases. China suddenly faces a two-front problem, not just the Philippines, Japan too. Third, AUK-US expansion discussions. Australia, UK, and US are talking about including the Philippines in intelligence sharing. Suddenly, China's military movements aren't secret anymore. The isolation strategy? Dead. Fourth, economic leverage isn't working. China thought economic pressure would force compliance, block Philippine exports, restrict tourism, apply financial pain. But ASEAN trade, US partnerships, and remittances from 10 million overseas Filipinos make the economy more resilient than China calculated. You can't starve a nation that's already learned to survive, and here's the part that's driving Beijing insane. The more they push, the more the Philippines aligns with China's rivals. Every aggressive move strengthens the very alliances China wanted to prevent. They're creating the encirclement they feared. But while politicians argue over territorial waters, there's something happening to ordinary Filipinos that nobody's talking about. Here's what they don't show on the news. While China and the Philippines face off over islands, Filipino workers are facing a different kind of uncertainty. Foreign companies hesitating to invest in a potential conflict zone, supply chains rerouting to avoid regional instability, young professionals asking, should I stay or should I leave? I've talked to Filipinos in tech, in BPO, and maritime industries, and the same anxiety keeps coming up. What happens to my job if this gets worse? What happens to my family if trade routes close? What happens if conflict disrupts everything? And here's what I realized watching this unfold. You can't control what China does. You can't control what politicians decide. You can't control whether tensions escalate or de-escalate, but you can control whether your income depends on one unstable location. That's why I built the Cruise Freedom Blueprint, not because I wanted to escape the Philippines, but because I refused to let geopolitical chaos control my family's future. The blueprint shows you how to build income streams that work whether you're in Manila, Singapore, or anywhere else. Because here's the truth. Regional instability isn't going away. The South China Sea dispute will continue for years, maybe decades, and the people who thrive won't be the ones hoping for stability, they'll be the ones who build systems that work regardless. Check the link in the description. It's free, because what's happening in the South China Sea isn't just about sovereignty, it's about what happens to you if this gets worse. So where does this go from here? China's not giving up. They can't. The South China Sea is too important to their economy, their security, their pride. But their strategy is broken. They thought the Philippines would fold. They thought isolation would work. They thought time was on their side. They were wrong. And now China faces a dilemma. Option 1, escalate. More ships, more pressure, more aggression. Risk, direct confrontation with US-backed Philippines and regional allies. That's a war nobody wants and China can't win. Option 2, de-escalate. Back off. Accept a negotiated settlement. Share resources. Risk. Look weak domestically. Embolden other neighbors. Lose face. Option 3, the long game. Maintain presence, but avoid conflict. Wait for political changes. Risk. The longer this drags on, the stronger Philippine alliances become. None of these are good options for Beijing, and that's exactly the position the Philippines wanted them in. For the first time in years, China isn't dictating the terms. They're reacting. And for Filipinos, this moment means something bigger. You don't have to accept that big powers decide your fate. You don't have to believe that resistance is futile. You don't have to surrender what's yours because someone bigger wants it. That's true for territorial waters, and it's true for your economic future. The same principle that made the Philippines stand firm in the South China Sea applies to your life. Don't let external forces control outcomes you can influence. Here's what keeps me up at night. It's not just the South China Sea, it's Ukraine, Taiwan, the Middle East. The world is becoming more unstable, not less, and the people who survive and thrive aren't the ones hoping their government protects them. They're the ones who built systems that work regardless of what politicians do. Russians who had offshore income when war started, they survived. Lebanese who had location-independent work during economic collapse, they rebuilt. Hong Kongers who built exit plans before 2020, they adapted. The pattern is clear. Geopolitical instability is the new normal. Your income shouldn't depend on whether your region stays peaceful. That's not paranoia, that's preparation. And preparation means building income that moves with you. Whether China backs down or doubles down in the South China Sea, your family's security shouldn't hang on that outcome. That's what the Cruise Freedom Blueprint teaches. How to build that security, how to create those options. Download it. It's free. Link below. So here's the bottom line. China just lost the battle they thought they had already won. The Philippines stood firm when everyone expected them to fold. And that matters. Not just for territorial sovereignty, but for what it represents. Small doesn't mean powerless. Pressure doesn't mean surrender. And your future doesn't have to depend on forces beyond your control. China's losing the South China Sea because they underestimated Filipino resolve. Don't let uncertainty underestimate yours. Hit that like button if this gave you a new perspective. Subscribe for real talk about what's actually happening in the region. And drop a comment. Do you think China will back down, or is this just the beginning? And if you want to build income that works anywhere, regardless of what happens in these waters, grab the Cruise Freedom Blueprint below. The fight for the South China Sea continues. Make sure you're ready for whatever comes next.